Good morning, everyone. We are the Group 1, and today we are going to discuss the concepts and importance of listening.
Good day everyone. So today I will be talking about the hearing and listening. So let us proceed to the discussion. You heard but you didn't listen. You might heard someone say this line and have perfectly understood what the person mean. Although hearing and listening are most of the time regarded as synonyms. So the two terms are quite distinct. The former is passive and the latter is active. So hearing is the process, function, or power of perceiving a sound. Listening is to hear something with thoughtful attention. So from the book Stand Up, Speak Out, the practice and ethics of public speaking, hearing is an accidental and automatic brain response to the sounds that requires no effort. And listening is purposeful and focused to understand the meaning expressed by a speaker. So, according to Klein 1996, hearing is the reception of sounds, listening is the attachment of meaning to the sound. So it means hearing is passive and listening is active. So the hearing simply involves the reception of sound waves by the air while listening goes beyond this to encompass the active process of interpreting and attaching meaning to those sounds. So the listening involves focus, attention, and cognitive processing, allowing individuals to comprehend and derive significance from the sounds they hear. So next is, according to Rost 2002, hearing is a form of perception, listening is an active an intentional process. Although both hearing and listening involve sounds perception, the difference in terms reflects a degree of intention. So, the listening is an unconscious process controlled by hidden cultural schemata, and also it includes the listener's own experience to understand the intention of the speaker. So, next is Vandergrift 1999 in Yildirim 2016. It says defines listening as a complex active process in which the listener must discriminate between sounds, understand in vocabulary and grammatical structure. So, interpret stress and intonation, retain what was gathered in all of the above, and interpret it within the immediate as well as the larger socio-cultural context of the utterance. So, according to him, thus, listening comprehension involves a great deal of mental activity on the part of the listener, and also it involves bottom up and top down processing of incoming speech.
Good morning, Sir Jeff, and good morning, everyone. I am Alibang Bangkaril, and here is the continuation of the report. According to Morin 2017, that hearing is the act of perceiving sounds and receiving sounds waves or vibration through your ears. Listening is the act of hearing a sounds and understanding what you hear. And based on my interpretation, that according to Maureen 2017, hearing is refers to physical process of receiving sounds wave or vibration through your ear. It is the ability to detect a sounds and the sounds in the environment. On the other hand, listening is the cognitive process of actively paying attention to making a sense of the sounds that what you hear. It involves not only the hearing the sounds but also understanding and comprehends its meaning. In other words, while hearing is the passive process, listening is an active, conscious effort to understand and to interpret the sounds that you're being heard. According also to survey 2017, the natural ability or an inborn trait that allow us to recognize sounds through ears by catching vibration, it's called hearing. And listening is defined as the the learned skill in the which in which we can receive sounds through ears and transform into the meaningful messages. Based also my interpretation, no, according to survey 2017, hearing is described as the natural ability or innate trait that enable us to recognize sounds by receiving vibration through our ears. It is the psychological process of detecting and receiving auditory stimuli. On other hand, listening is defined as a learned skill where, where we can receive sounds through our ears and then transform them into meaningful messages. Listening goes beyond the physical act of hearing that involves actively processing and understanding the information that convey by the sounds that what we hear and involves interpreting and comprehend the message being communicated. So while hearing is natural ability, listening is a skill that can be developed and improved through practice and conscious effort. And also, no, as they say that hearing is through the ears, and but listening is through mind and heart. No? According to Flower Drew and Miller 2005, it is requires not only using our mind but also comprehend the message, but also um, engaging our emotion and empathy to truly connect with the speaker and their intentions. In, in other words, listening is a holistic process that involves both cognitive and emotional aspect, whereas hearing is simply the act of perceiving sounds. Sadiko 2015 state that listening is a state of receptivity that permits an understanding of what is heard and grants partnership in the communication process. It means that that the listening goes beyond simply hearing that words being spoken is is involves the message being conveyed and actively trying to understand and comprehend it. And listening um, it not listening I mean listening is not just a passive act but an active engagement in the communication process where that the listener is actively participate by paying attention, processing the information, and seeking the understanding. And also it emphasizes the importance of being fully present and engines in the conversation truly grasps the meaning and intention behind the words being spoken. Claim that also children born with the ability to hear. Children children first listen and then start to speak. They speak before they read, and finally their writing comes after reading. The spoke that language skills is listening is the first one to appear according to Lunstein 1979. To sum up, no, na listening is more than just hearing sounds and words. It is an active process wherein language learning receive coming sounds and word respond to both verbal and non-verbal messages. No, listening is an integral part of communication. Those we need to develop a keen interest and improving our listening skills. As you listen, um, you interpret the sounds and get the important words and construct meaning. As you do this, no, as you do this, you also Stimulus check the new information against the prior knowledge and experience. And as a good listener, no, show a readiness and possesses an ability to manipulate the sounds into words and their contextual meaning. And that's all po.
Active listening in various interaction, face-to-face or virtual, listeners show their understanding in response to the speakers through verbal utterances like okay, aha, or oh, and non-verbal gesture like nodding and pressing the emoticon buttons in Zoom. They can also make comments, ask questions, and takes turn participating in the conversation. This proves that listening is active not a passive skill. If the listener takes part actively in the process of listening and linguistically and uses his or her non-linguistic knowledge to follow up the message that the speaker intends in a conversation. If she or he listens, replies, and asks and answer question, it is active listening. According to Lindsley and Knight 2006, Littlewood 1981, and Yildirim 2016, Anderson and Lynch 2003 added that understanding is not something that happens because of what speaker says. The listener needs to make connection between what she or he hears and what she or he already knows, and at the same time, he or she tries to comprehend the meaning negotiated by the speaker. So, what is active listening? Although the previous paragraphs have established the listening is an active skill, not all listening is the same. This skill may not come naturally for many of us. You have to understand that there is a line that separates passive listening and active listening. So the passive listening is a little more than hearing. It is regarded as one-way communication wherein the receiver does not respond nor give feedback to the speaker in any way. Imagine yourself listening to the 1 hour and half lecture of your teacher via Google Meet. That is one of the example. So your teacher keeps talking, and while you claim that you are listening, you didn't show any feedback in the form of clicking the emojis for a response or using the chat box for question or raising your hand to answer question. You may not be doing anything else, yet you are also not paying attention to what's being said. On the other hand, active listening includes responding and providing feedback at the right time. It is paying attention not only to the speaker or to the message but even to the verbal and non-verbal messages. It is listening accurately. So next is the importance of active listening. So in people's everyday life cannot be argued. According to Gu and Wills 2006 mentioned that it is the medium through which people gain a large proportion of their education, their informations, their understanding of the world and human affairs, their ideals, sense of values. Highlighting the importance of listening in language learning, Peterson 2001 and Yildirim 2016 states that no other type of language input is easy to process as spoken language received through listening. Through listening, learners can build an awareness the interworking of language system at various levels and thus establish a base for more fluent productive skills. And also, in an English language teaching or ELT, the classroom listening is considered a basic skill according to Noonan 1998, stated that over 50% of the time that students spend functioning in a foreign language will be devoted to listen. According to 1998, according to Noonan 1998, Moreover, the importance of listening or activities and language classrooms are listed below based on Ross 1994 and Yildirim 2016. So, the listening is a vital in the language classroom because it provides input for the learner. Without understanding input at the right level, any learning simply cannot begin. So the spoken language provides a mean of interaction for the learner because the learner must interact to achieve understanding, and also to have access to speaker of the language is essential. Moreover, the listener failure to understand the language they hear is an impetus, not an obstacle to the interaction and learning. So the authentic spoken language present a challenge for the learner to understand language as native speaker use it. So the listening exercises provide teachers with a means for drawing learner attention to new forms like vocabulary, grammar, new interaction patterns in the language. So let us proceed to the barriers to active listening. Sometimes, even if it is one's intention to stay focused while listening, so may have difficulty staying attentive due to several factors like noise, attention span, receiver biases, and listening or receiver apprehension. So let us tackle first the noise. The noise, it is the most common distraction when listening. So the noise does not only refer to something physical but also psychological, like internal thought, psychological or basic needs. And the semantic noise and word meanings are in the interpretation. So the next is attention span. So in the attention span, as a future teacher, you should know that your students can only maintain focused attention for a finite length of time. Thus, classroom lectures should be short, interesting, and engaging. If you are a speaker on any occasion, formal or informal, you need to apply certain strategies to prevent this interference. So next is the receiver biases. So in the receiver biases, one's preconceived ideas and opinions, whether about the speaker or the message topic, can be considered as the noise and may interfere in the listening process. Also, it may hinder one from receiving new points of view and information. Even with these biases, it is important to withhold judgment all the time and promote open-minded listening. So last is listening or receiver apprehension. So, for this naman, the fear that you might be unable to understand the message or process the information correctly or be able to adapt your thinking to include the new information coherently. According to Wills 1975 and Stand Up, Speak Out of the Practice and Ethics of Public Speaking 2011, it is important to address this by identifying your audience. So, the audience must be the students. So, the current understanding of the topic, you should not underestimate or overestimate your audience knowledge of a subject. Thank you.
And so, once again, good morning, Sir Jeff, and good morning, everyone. It's me again, Alibangbang Karil, and now we will tackle about the 6K of active listening skills. First name is pay attention. What is this? No? Unsa ni siya? Pay attention. So once again, good morning, Sir Jeff, and good morning, everyone. It's me again, Alibangbang Karil, and now we will tackle about the 6K of active listening skills. First is pay attention. Unsa ni siya? Pay attention. In active listening, we prioritize giving a full attention to the speaker, like we concentrate on what the speaker is saying or direct our attention to their words and actively processing the information being conveyed. Also, it involves being attentive not only the speaker words but also to their nonverbal gestures like or observing their facial expression, body language, and tone of the voice, which provide additional context and insight into their emotion and intentions. Additionally, requires allowing to the speaker to express their thoughts fully without interruption. We refrain from cutting from them off and patiently wait for them to finish bago ta mag-response. This demonstrates respect for the speaker and ensure that we have a complete understanding of their message before providing a feedback. Second, second is withhold judgment. No? Unsa po ni siya? Kani siya, it is a common to encounter opposing ideas or different perspectives from others. Maintaining an open mind is crucial in such a situation, as it allows us to welcome varied ideas, new perspectives, and new different opinions. As a good listener, understand the importance of responding appropriately without criticizing, judging, or insisting their own point of view. Another one is name is reflect. No, reflect. Reflecting in active listening is involves the rephrasing, repeating, or reaffirming both the words and feelings expressed by the speaker. The purpose of the reflex, no, one is allow to the speaker to hear their thoughts and feelings. By reflecting, we provide an opportunity for the speaker to hear their own thoughts, feelings again, and being echoed to back to them. This helps them focus on what they are saying and feelings, facilitating self-awareness and and introspection. Number two, to show the speaker that you are trying to perceive the word as they see, and that you are doing your best to understand their message, no? And also, no, it shows that we are actively trying to understand their message and empathize with their experience. By accurately reflecting their words and emotion, we convey a sense of validation and support. Number three is encourage continue talking. No, encourage the speaker to continue expressing themselves and sharing their thoughts and feelings. And if you have noticed, no, it's all about the speaker, no, nakafocus siya sa more on the speaker rather than the listener. The listener in this case will be not ask question nor give her own opinion of the topic, rather help the speaker direct her thoughts and encourage her to continue speaking. The fourth one is the clarity. In active listening, no, providing accurate and relevant feedback is crucial. Importante kayong feedback to ensure that you can offer meaningful feedback, no. I mean, it is important to clarify any information that may not have that not been clearly understood, or to seek additional details about the topic. This can be done by asking question or seeking further clarification. As an active listener, you can ask questions to gain a better understanding of the speaker message. For example, you may ask, could you please provide more information about that? Or ask, what do you mean by? This allows the speaker to elaborate on their own in their own ideas and provide any necessary explanation or examples. This provides an opportunity for the speaker to fill any missing pieces of the information or to correct the misconceptions. Use this technique when you want to understand what is being communicated in the context. The fifth is summarize. Summarize is another effective technique in active listening. It involves restating or summarizing the key points discussed in the conversation to ensure a shared understanding between the listener and the speaker. The purpose of the summarizing is not state about the facts, but also rather to clarify if the listener has accurately understood the information and the emotion conveyed by the speaker. When you summarize, you provide an opportunity for the speaker to review their thoughts and feelings and listen to themselves also. It also them to confirm whether their message has been heard correctly. Additionally, summarizing can be helpful when there is a possibility that the listener has not fully grasped the speaker message, and by summarizing, you demonstrate that you are taking the conversation seriously and committed to understanding the speaker. Again, again, summarizing is a valuable tool in active listening. It helps in confirming, understanding, reviewing information, and ensuring the both and listener and the speaker are on the same page. By actively engaging the clarifying and summarizing, you foster effective communication and create a space for open dialogue. And the last one is share. In active listening, it is important to withhold judgment and refrain from insisting or imposing our own ideas. However, it does not mean that we cannot provide a relevant, accurate, and necessary feedback. Active listening is a tool used to understand and be understood. By listening attentively to other person and maintaining an open mind, we can gain a better understanding of their perspective and feeling. It allows us to empathize and see where they're coming from. Taking into account the context of the speaker help us to introduce our own perspective, ideas, and feelings without imposing them or passing judgment. The key is to approach the conversation with respect and genuine curiosity. By active listening and understanding the speaker point of view, we create a safe and an open space for dialogue. This allow for more constructive exchange of ideas and enable us to share our own perspective without imposing them on others. And that's all my report po, and thank you.
Evaluating, and responding are the five stages of listening. So the first one is the receiving stage. As obvious as it may sound or it may seem, in order to effectively gather information through listening, we must first be able to physically hear what we are listening to. So the clearer the sound, it would be easier for us to process what we just hear. So paired with hearing is attending. So attending is the other half of the receiving stage. Attending is a process where it or you accurately identify and interpret particular sounds that you hear or what's the meaning of it, something like that. So the sounds we hear have no meaning until we put meaning to it or what is the context of what we are hearing or we are listening. So listening or active listening is a process that construct meaning both verbal and non-verbal communication or information. But there are also challenges in the reception stage. So as we listen, we are bombarded with variety of auditory stimuli, and all at once they much differentiate which of those stimuli or sound meant to be listened to or not. And effective listening involves being able to focus on which speech sounds you're going to listen and disregard the noise into your background. So, for instance, if your friend is trying to tell you a story, but you guys are on the sidewalk, you have to listen to the word of your friend or exact word that she is saying, and you have to disregard the ambient street sounds for you to be able to receive the information clearly or what your friend is trying to tell you. Attending also involves being able to discern human speech, also known as speech segmentation. This is where you are identifying auditory stimuli as speech but not being able to break those sounds down into the sentence and words. And also, when you are discerning speech segmentation, it can be more difficult when the listener is unfamiliar with the language that she or he is trying to listen to. So the second stage is understanding. So in this stage, this is where the comprehension happens. Understanding when both the speaker and the audience share an experience, meaning, and this is the stage where the audience determines the context of the words that he or she is hearing. So determining the context and meaning of individual words as well as assigning meaning to the words that they hear. And this stage, the understanding stage, is essential to create or understand sentence, and both are essential for understanding the speaker's message. But before getting into the big picture of like a message, it can be very difficult to focus on what the speaker is saying. And then you will be able to think about this idea or thought or scenario when you are walking into our lecture hall, and you may immediately understand the words and the sentences that you are hearing, but not immediately because um, there might be different sounds and noises that you will be able to hear. Whether what you're hearing at the moment is like the main point of the talk, whatever, or the side note and the discretion of the students that are talking around you. So is what we hear. Understanding what we hear is very important for us to be able to live our daily lives and be able to gather basic information. So, example, in an office, people listen to their superiors and then follow them. And in school, students listen to their teachers, but without understanding what they hear, you won't be able to actually perform properly if you're not. Yes, you listen to it, you heard it, but if you don't understand it, it would be difficult for you to do a specific task or activity, let's say. So, one tactic to be better at understanding the speaker's meaning or message is you have to ask questions. And when you are allowing other people to ask questions, or if you as a listener are asking questions, it will fill the hole that is in your mental state, or fill the hole in your mental reconstruction as the speaker is speaking to you or to the audience. Like if you don't understand it, ask question. That's basically it. So number three is remembering. So in this process, remembering is categorizes and retain the information they gathered from the speaker for future access. So memory is essential with the listening process or the remembering process, we depend on our memory to fill in the blanks when we're listening, and we let um, places of these words and context that what we hear of what we hear. So, for example, you forgot everything you heard immediately after you heard it, it would be difficult for you to follow through what someone is talking to or what the topic is all about. Moreover, let's say, for example, a friend of yours who expresses fear of something, let's say, for example, cockroaches, and then you guys happen to be walking, and then she happened to she saw a cockroach, and then you will be able to remember, oh, my friend is afraid of cockroach, because you remember, let's say years back or days back, she told you about her childhood experience about the cockroach and stuff like that. So remembering the previous information from your friend or someone you're talking to, or like a podcast or anything that you're listening to, is critical to move forward. And similarly, making associations to past remembered information can help the listener to understand the current thing that she or he is hearing, but in a wider context or in a um, wider thought, I would say. So, in listening to a lecture about the symptoms of depression, let's say, for example, listener might be able to connect the description of that into a character in the story of the novel that she wrote, something like that. But because we have different memories and experiences in life, the speaker and the listener may attach different meanings to whatever they hear. So, example, if the speaker is talking about her experience from the past, or like when she was younger and stuff, and then the listener, it didn't happen to her, but it did happen to her friend or to her sibling, she can still relate that information by just remembering what the person is talking, you know. And also, the context is important for both the listener and the speaker. The next stage is evaluating. So, under the evaluating stage, this is the process when one is or the listener assesses the information that they receive. They evaluate it, they think about it, and evaluating allows the listener to form an opinion to what he or she heard. And during this stage, the listener determines whether or not the information they heard and understood from the speaker is well constructed, or either it's disorganized, is biased, is unbiased, and if whether it is true or false, if they're just making jokes or creating the information that they're saying, something like that. So, let's say, for example, a voter is listening to a politician's speech for her to be able to know who she will vote in the election. Something like that. She evaluates the information that she hears for her to be able to do the right thing. Something like that. Next is, lastly, about this stage is it is critical that you really have to evaluate it for you to be able to decide or to critically analyze the information that you heard, for the listener to be able to form their own ideas, their own decisions and actions and beliefs. So let's say, for example, if you are a voter, you evaluate what you hear for you to be able to pick who to vote, you know. Next is the fifth stage is responding. So responding is a stage where the process is the listener provides verbal or a non-verbal example, non-verbal response to what the speaker is saying. So the following stage, the remembering stage, um, do have like two different.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Sir Jeff. I am Maxine Shelde Alfaro, and I will be reporting the process of listening. So, the process of listening has two types. The first one is top-down. The second one is bottom-up. So these two describe how a person processes a listening text. So let's proceed to the next topic, the bottom-up. In the bottom-up process, the listener at the onset uses the information he or she has about sounds, word meanings, and discourse markers. Then after, tries to assemble his or her understanding of what he or she reads or hears one step at a time. This is according to Brown 2006. So, the listener in this case looks for contextual clues from the text to better understand it. It is first decoding the semantic or meaning, syntactic or grammar, and phonological or sound aspects of the utterance as a means of understanding the listening or spoken text. For example, they might recognize familiar words or phrases, understand the grammar and syntax, and pay attention to cues like pauses or intonation. This approach relies on analyzing the smaller elements of the text to build a full understanding of the message. So let's proceed to the next one under the bottom-up process. So this kind of processing linearly consists of decoding sounds, starting from the smallest significant units to complete text. Deriving meaning is the last step of process that later come together to form utterance, which are finally linked together to form meaningful text, according to Noonan 1998. So in this type of processing, listeners decode sounds one step at a time, starting from the smallest parts like individual sounds, then building up to understand whole words and sentences. So imagine you're listening to someone say the word cat. Cat. In the bottom-up process, you'd start by decoding the sounds like k, a, t. K, a, t. You recognize each sound separately. K is the sound at the beginning. A is the middle sound. T is at the end. Then you put these sounds together to understand the word cat. Cat. This step-by-step process helps you understand the word starting from its smallest parts. So they piece together the meaning of what they hear gradually, which with each step contributing to their understanding. Eventually, these understandings come together to form complete sentences and meaningful text. So for the third one, bottom-up processing constitutes a view in listening which is based on the linguistics elements of comprehension and aims to develop the student's abilities in identifying formal elements such as word sentence limits, contractions, individual sounds, and sound combinations. This is according to Hinkel 2006. So, bottom-up processing in listening focuses on understanding language by paying attention to its individual parts and structures. This means noticing things like where words start and end, how sentences are formed, recognizing contractions like can't for cannot, and identifying individual sounds and how they combine to make words. It's like learning the ABCs before putting them together to read words and sentences. So for the fourth one, bottom-up processing involves using our knowledge about sounds, word meanings, and discourse markers to set up the understanding of what we hear. So let's proceed to the explanation. Bottom-up processing means using what we know about sounds, word meanings, and markers in conversations to understand what's being said. So Brown says it's important to hold onto some sounds in our memory long enough so we can connect them and figure out the message. This helps us make sense of what we're hearing, especially when new information keeps coming in. So next, likewise, Richards 2008 defines bottom-up processing as a process of decoding, where comprehension starts with the analysis of the input data, successive levels of organization, which includes sounds, words, clauses, sentences, and text. It established a relationship between the constituent elements of the sentence and understand their meaning based on the listener's lexical and grammatical competence. So, for example, bottom-up processing is like building a house. You start with the foundation, adding bricks one by one until the house is complete. Similarly, in listening, you start with small parts like sounds and words, gradually piecing them together to understand the full message, just like building a house brick by brick. So, for the next one, Although recognizing that these syntactic elements are very important in language learning, it is convenient to remember that these linguistic aspects are just temporary carriers of meanings, according to Richards 2008. But let's proceed to the explanation. So language learning is like putting together a puzzle. Grammar and vocabulary are important pieces of the puzzle, but they're only part of the whole picture. Richards tells us that these language pieces are temporary carriers of meaning, like individual puzzle pieces. Similarly, Ross emphasizes that understanding a foreign language goes beyond just knowing grammar and words. It involves understanding the social context where the language is used. So it's like recognizing that each puzzle piece fits into a larger picture. And to understand the full picture, we need to consider not just the pieces themselves, but also the bigger picture of the puzzle and where each piece fits in. Finally, one Treffer's dollars adds that to truly understand spoken text, we need to connect our language knowledge with our general knowledge about the world. It's like completing the puzzle by considering not just the pieces, but also the overall picture they create and how it fits into our understanding of the world. So let's proceed to the first topic, top-down. So according to Yildirim 2016, he explains that in a top-down process, learners use their background knowledge to comprehend the meaning by considering previous knowledge and schemata. It means using your knowledge and experiences of the world or schema in comprehending a text. So the listener does not rely on understanding individual letters, words, sentences, phrases, or even sounds. Rather, uses his or her existing knowledge or information that might come from outside text. So, the top-down process highlights that understanding starts from the listener's background knowledge of the situation. And this means that when you're reading or listening to something, you don't just focus on individual words or sounds. Instead, you use what you already know about the topic and the world to help you understand. So let's proceed to the next topic. I will not be reading what's on the screen anymore since you can already read it by yourself. So, the study of Ross 2011 means that when you're listening or reading something, you don't just rely on the words themselves. Instead, you use your own memories, experiences, and knowledge of the world to help you understand. It's like connecting the new information with what you already know to make sense out of it. Additionally, you consider the social context or situation to understand the deeper meaning of the text. So for the third one, this process demands the listener's active reconstruction of the speaker's knowledge of the text and communicative situation to be able to understand original meaning with the help of incoming sounds and clues, the use of their prior what is being said, according to Noonan 1998, Brown 2006, and Richards 2008. So, this means that when you're listening to someone, you need to actively use your own knowledge of the situation and context to understand what they're saying. So, you're not just passively listening, but actively reconstructing the speaker's meaning based on your own understanding and the information they're giving you. So, for the fourth one, according to Hinkle 2006 and Richards 2008, this means that when you're trying to understand something you hear or read, there are two main ways your brain processes the information. So the first one is top-down processing. You use your existing knowledge and understanding of the world to help you understand the language. It's like when you're reading a story and you already know the characters and setting, so it's easier to understand what's happening. On the other hand, in bottom-up processing, you start with the details of the language itself, like individual words and sentences, and then use clues from the text to understand the bigger picture. So, moreover, based on their knowledge of the context, listeners can predict the message and confirm their predictions through inference. This is according to Newton 2009. And let's proceed to the explanation. This means that when you're listening to something, you can use what you already know about the situation to guess what the speaker might say next. Then, as you listen further, you can see if your guesses were correct by paying attention to the speaker's words and the context of the conversation. This helps you understand something that might be confusing at first by using your own knowledge and past experiences to make sense out of it. Next is these two processes are considered correlated although they involve very distinct listening activities. These two are both used to construct meaning. Bach 1994 in Nihei 2002 explains that to arrive at an understanding of the message, listeners must understand the phonetic input, vocabulary, and syntax. This is under the bottom-up processing. At the same time, you use the context of a situation, general knowledge, and past experiences, and this is under the top-down processing. Thus leads to an integrative approach in teaching listening, according to Lopez et al. 2020. So imagine you're trying to understand a story someone is telling you. Bottom-up processing is like focusing on the individual words and sentences they're saying, and putting them together to understand the story step by step. On the other hand, top-down processing is like using your own knowledge and experiences to help you understand the story. It's like using your background knowledge to fill in the blanks and make sense of what you're hearing. So even though these are different ways of listening, they work together to help you understand the story. Bottom-up processing helps you understand the words and sentences, while top-down processing helps you understand the overall meaning. So when you're learning to listen better, it's important to use both of these approaches together.
Move on to the listening skills. So according to Field 1998 and Nihei 2002, based on the listening process discussed, there are specific listening ability. As the teacher, you have to provide instruction as how your students will be able to acquire such skills. So these skills are the competencies which have native listeners possess and non-native speakers need to acquire concerning the language that they are learning. Moreover, you have to inform your student that acquiring these specific skills needs to be practiced, just like how they master speaking, reading, and writing. So now we are going to talk about the 16 skill classifications that is adopted by Nihei 2002 from an article that came from Richards 1987. Number one is the ability to recognize reduced forms of words. Number two, ability to distinguish word boundaries. Number three is the ability to detect keywords. Example given, those which identify topics and propositions. Number four is the ability to guess meaning of words from the context in which they occur. So personally, I think if you do have rich vocabulary, number four would be easier for you because you will be able to understand the context way better because like, oh, I know the meaning of that word. And then you process like the whole phrase by just listening or just by understanding that one word. And then you form a meaning to it. Number five is the ability to recognize cohesive devices in spoken discourse. Number six is the ability to distinguish between major and minor constituents. And number seven is the ability to recognize communication functions of utterances according to situations, settings, participants, and event goals. Number eight is the ability to reconstruct infer situations. It could be the situation, goals, participation, and procedures. So number nine is ability to use real-world knowledge and experience to work out purpose, goal settings, and procedures. So let's say for example, I personally love to watch health videos. I know Jesse and Chispe, Dr. Ekberg, Sternberg, Pradeep Pamladas, they are so big into like fasting, intermittent fasting, how to reduce glucose spikes for you to be able to function mentally like the whole day, like you're okay and you don't have cravings, unusual cravings, like the whole day. So I know these things, I've heard it, I love listening to it, but there are times that I don't really use that knowledge. So we know this phrase, knowledge is power. Yes, that is true, but I also believe in the phrase that knowledge is potential power. So in my case, if I don't use that knowledge that I have about health, it would be useless. I kept hearing it, but I don't apply it into my real life um, context. I don't apply it to my health. So how will I be able to be healthier if I don't use the knowledge that I have about fasting, about glucose spikes, about cravings, right? So whatever you hear and then you don't use it into like your real world or real life situations, it will be useless. Anyway, so number 10 is the ability to predict outcomes from events described. So another personal experience is that I do love watching true crime documentaries. So one of my favorite, and I think it's very common, is the Chris Watts, and I forgot the wife's name, but it's the Chris Watts case. He, like, in the end, the verdict was he killed the wife and the two girls, her two daughters. But if you're like listening to it, right, and then you listen attentively, it would be easier for you to like guess or predict, oh, Chris really did kill his family, something like that. Next is the ability to infer links and connections between events. Number 12 is the ability to distinguish between literal and implied meaning. So another personal experience about this is that someone actually asked me way back before pa, I was I wasn't holding the book that time. I just put it at the top of the table, and then when I went back, someone is holding the book already. And then this person asked me, "Oh, you're reading that, but you're still young." And then I thought I was okay, but like with my usual self, I just cover my face, and then I cover my face because I'm always shy, obviously. But I thought I was okay. But then me and my friends and a few classmates went to the mall after that, like hours before that. Hours after that. And then that thought kept lingering sa aking mind. I was like, what did that person mean with what he said? Did he literally judge the book by its cover or by the title if he hasn't read it, or if he did read it, then he might think that I'm not that kind of person who will read those kind of stuff. But anyway, it's very important that we know the meaning of like what someone really meant when they spoke, because most of the time we misunderstood it, we misinterpreted. So yeah, we have to distinguish the literal and the implied meaning. Oh, by the way, I still don't know what that person meant with what he said, but I am a detached person, so I don't care. So, number 13 is the ability to recognize markers of coherence and discourse to detect such relations as the main idea and supporting ideas, given information, new information, and generalization and exemplification. Next is the ability to process speech containing pauses, errors, and corrections. So now, as I am speaking and through my previous videos, I knew that I do have errors. I pause, and sometimes I correct myself when I find it like wrong, found it wrong. When I say something and like, oh, that's not the right thing that I should have said, something like that. So if you do have like an okay or like a good listening ability, even if me speaking to you with pauses, errors, and corrections, you will still be able to understand it. Number 15 is the ability to make your facial, paralinguistic, and other clues to work out meanings. So, I don't know if you knew Vanessa Van Edwards. She wrote a book about visual cues or like body language and stuff. So, one thing that I remember about what she said is, let's say, for example, you are talking to someone, like you're talking face to face, okay? But like, yes, his or her face is looking straight at you, but her body is angling on a different direction. She said that it is a sign that that person is not totally engaged to you into your conversation. And if there is a distraction that's gonna come, she will grab it. She will grab it. Another thing is like, obviously, if one is crossing their arms or crossing their arms, or do you have this bitch face or something? Well, having a bitch face, resting bitch face, is like sometimes people do that, and sometimes there are just people that looks like they're mad or something, but they're not. Anyway, so let's just use the example of like crossing your arms. It's a sign that you're not open for anything. You're not open for anything. You're not an open person. You're not an open book. But you don't have to be an open book about all the information in your life. I meant, like, I hope you understand what I mean. So yeah, another thing is, what do I have to remember? Why? Just move on. Anyway, I forgot some things. Ability number 16 is ability to adjust listening strategies for different kinds of listener and the purpose and the goal of the talk.
So good morning once again. I will be reporting the last part for this topic, listening to comprehend and listening to acquire the target language. So for the first one, the LSRW, or listening, speaking, reading, writing method, prioritizes teaching students to listen first when learning a new language. So imagine learning how to write an essay. First, your teacher explains the structure and purpose of an essay, which includes listening. Then, you verbally brainstorm ideas for your essay topic, which includes speaking. Next, you read example essays to understand different writing styles and techniques, which includes reading. Finally, you write your own essay, incorporating the skills and knowledge you've gained. So, that includes writing. So, for the second one, listening provides substantial oral input and data, aiding language learners in spoken communication. So, oral input refers to the information we receive through our sense of hearing. When you listen to your favorite songs, you're exposed to oral input in the form of lyrics, melodies, and rhythms. As you listen repeatedly, you start to pick up on the words and melodies, and eventually, you're able to sing along. This process of listening and repeating helps you learn and internalize the language and music, making oral input an effective way to learn and improve skills. So, for the third one, understanding nuances in a language requires proficiency in listening. So, nuances are subtle differences or shades of meaning in language. Just like how you can hear someone if he or she is happy or sad by the tone of their voice. Good listeners can pick up on these subtle cues and understand the underlying emotions or intentions behind the words. For example, in a conversation, someone might use sarcasm or irony, and good listeners can detect these nuances to grasp the true meaning of what's being said. Understanding nuances in language helps us communicate more effectively and interpret messages accurately. So, for the fourth one, Schmidt 1990 emphasized the significance of listening and facilitating second language acquisition. So, Schmidt highlights the crucial role of listening in learning a second language. Just as listening forms the foundation for language acquisition, it serves as the initial step in mastering essay writing. So, to continue the explanation for the fourth one, without effective listening skills, learners may struggle to understand the structure and content of essays, hindering their ability to express themselves effectively in writing. So, for the fifth one, Schmidt argues that learners will struggle to comprehend and learn without effective listening skills. So, Schmidt's argument underscores the importance of listening in the learning process. Similarly, without proficient listening skills, students may find it challenging to comprehend essay prompts, understand essay structure, and learn key concepts, ultimately hindering their ability to produce well-written essays. So for the sixth one, linguistic materials for language acquisition are those that attract attention and are noticed and held in memory, according to Schmidt 1990. So, Schmidt's study highlights the importance of engaging materials in language learning. For example, when learning to write essays, students benefit from listening to engaging lectures or podcasts on essay writing techniques. These materials capture their attention and are retained in memory, enhancing their understanding and retention of essay writing principles. So let's proceed to the seventh one. Krashen's input hypothesis suggests that language acquisition is facilitated by comprehensible input in low anxiety situations containing messages that students want to hear. So Krashen's hypothesis emphasizes the importance of providing learners with meaningful and engaging input. Similarly, when learning to write essays, students benefit from listening to essay examples or model essays that are comprehensible and relevant to their interests. This input serves as inspiration and guidance for their own essay writing endeavors. So for the eighth one, listening is crucial for acquiring a second language and processing language in real time, aiding in internalizing language rules and developing other language skills. This is according to Ross 2001 and Van der Grief 2011. Ross and Van der Grief highlight the crucial role of listening in language acquisition and development. Likewise, when learning to write essays, students rely on listening skills to absorb information, internalize language rules, and develop critical thinking abilities necessary for crafting well-structured, coherent essays. So for the ninth one, the K-12 curriculum guide in English emphasizes the listening comprehension as a fundamental language domain for students to learn and teachers to teach in greater detail. So to explain, the curriculum guide underscores the importance of prioritizing listening comprehension in language education. Similarly, teachers incorporate listening activities into essay writing lessons to enhance students' understanding of essay structure, vocabulary usage, and rhetorical devices. So for the 10th one, in language classes, teachers typically provide oral text for students to listen to and evaluate their comprehension, according to Richards 2016. So Richards highlights the common practice of incorporating listening activities into language instruction. For example, when teaching essay writing, instructors may read aloud essay prompts or model essays to help students learn key concepts and techniques. So, for the 11th one, teachers often focus on listening comprehension, but it's important to also consider listening as a tool for language acquisition. This is according to Nemchinova 2013. So Nemchinova emphasizes the need to view listening as more than just comprehension. Similarly, when teaching essay writing, educators should encourage students to actively listen for language patterns, rhetorical strategies, and argumentative techniques used in essays they encounter, enhancing their writing skills. So let's proceed. Listening activities should aim to boost linguistic development by encouraging accurate recognition and recall of words, syntax, and expressions, and incorporating them into oral production. This is according to Richards 2008 in Nemchinova 2013. So Richards and Nemchinova advocate for listening activities that promote language acquisition and oral production. For instance, when teaching essay, instructors may conduct dictation exercises to reinforce spelling and syntax or engage students in dialogue practice to improve their oral expression of essay dialogue. Number 14. Activities for this purpose may include dictation, cloze tests, and similar exercises. Similarly, when preparing to speak in public, students can engage in activities like speech dictation, where they listen to speeches and transcribe them word for word. This helps them recognize and recall language patterns, vocabulary, and rhetorical devices commonly used in public speaking. Additionally, students can participate in cloze tests for speeches, where they fill in missing words or phrases in speech outlines, enhancing their understanding of speech structure and language usage. These exercises contribute to their proficiency in public speaking by reinforcing their knowledge of speech organization and language fluency. Number 15. Richards emphasizes the importance of learners engaging in activities that involve trying out and experimenting with newly noticed language forms to incorporate them into their linguistic repertoire. Richards highlights the value of active engagement in language learning. Similarly, when learning to write essays, students benefit from practicing writing exercises that incorporate newly learned language forms, such as sentence completion activities or essay brainstorming sessions, to reinforce their understanding and usage of essay writing techniques. Number 16. Nemchinova suggests that students could participate in more productive activities, such as reading transcripts aloud, sentence completion, dialogue practice, and role playing to use target forms from the text. So Namchinova recommends interactive activities that promote language production and usage. For example, when studying scripts, students may engage in role-playing exercises where they act out scenarios related to the topic, enhancing their understanding and application of essay concepts and language forms. And number 17, engaging in speaking activities and working with transcripts helps learners master the language forms they have heard, contributing to a multifaceted approach to listening instruction. So these activities promote active engagement and language mastery. Similarly, when learning essay writing, students benefit from speaking and writing exercises that involve analyzing and discussing essay texts, reinforcing their comprehension and application of essay writing principles and techniques. So, to end my part in the process of listening, this means that when we learn a language, it's not just about memorizing grammar rules and vocabulary words. While those are important, they're like pieces of a puzzle. They help us understand part of the language, but they're not the whole picture. We also need to understand the social situations and context where the language is used, as well as how it relates to our general knowledge about the world. By considering all these aspects together, we can truly understand and communicate effectively in the language. So this is the last part for our topic, and I hope you learned something. Thank you for listening, even though if we are running out of time, and if ever you have clarifications or questions regarding our topic, you can message us, the reporters.